And welcome back to another episode of JP and the Beanstalk.
You bet. You bet. We're here. The energy is terrific. It's great in the gym. It's good to be here. Popping some things.
Yeah.
Lifting them up, down. Little forearm curl there.
A nice little Pepsi right here.
That's really nice. Yeah, a little Pepsi Cola. Kept cool by Yeti. I'm rocking my Orioles mug. For those of you that can see, and for those of you that can't, that's okay. Just imagine. But my Orioles broke a 5-game losing streak heading into the All-Star break. Yeah.
And they got in a fight.
I was at Yankees. It's been a great, well, not really great, but it's been an entertaining weekend for the Orioles.
I was at Dave & Buster's.
Yes.
I pay no attention to baseball whatsoever. I look at the screen. I missed the actual pitch, so I don't actually. I saw the guy on the ground and they get thrown or whatever, and I just saw everybody, and I'm like waiting for this highlight forever to be like, just show me and get hit again for the love of God. Yeah. And then finally, it got to the point where it was just showing like the fight initiate, and what I really appreciate about all of it, the manager was first. That's badass. Yes. That is a leader of men right there. He's like, we're going to war right now.
Not only was he the first to lead the charge, my favorite part of the whole incident, is obviously his batter gets hit in the ear on the helmet, fortunately, by the pitch. Scary situation. He's down on the ground for a bit, gets up. By all accounts, he's going to be fine. So we avoided any major catastrophe. But in that moment, you don't know, and anytime in baseball a player gets hit, there's this stupid unwritten rule of, now we got to fight about it, or now we got to hit one of their players. And there's even additional context where the previous series the Yankees and the Orioles had, there were dudes getting hit back and forth. So this tension has been building up. So now in this game, 9th inning, it's a game the Yankees are going to win. It's really no contest at this point. It's like 6-1. And there's one out already in the bottom of the 9th inning. Dude gets clocked in the ear, 0-2 with the pitch. Manager checks on him. Manager picks up his helmet, right? Because obviously it's come off in all of the getting hit by the pitch. He looks over at the Yankees dugout, chucks the helmet a good 20 feet before making the beeline for the Yankees dugout. Like, you watch the video, it's incredible. That thing goes sailing. It's just gone, and then he's heading the other direction. It was a treat to watch. Fortunately, nobody did anything particularly dumb, so nobody got suspended or fined. It was just I think ultimately cooler heads prevailed. The Yankees pitcher didn't mean to do it. It was raining at the time, so he just lost the grip on the pitch. It's just a freak, crummy thing that can happen, but it was made for quality television.
I think Baltimore needs to give him the key to the city. Mm-hmm. That's just... That's a man right there.
Baltimore Twitter was all just unified around the manager, Brandon Hyde. They're like, that's our guy right there.
Well, that's he just made himself a legend.
Yes.
That's all you needed right there. They're like, job for life.
Yeah, no question. No question. Yeah. It's, I so dislike just posturing in sports. So often it gets blown up over stuff that doesn't really, it's drama, right? But this is one of those few moments where it's like you can understand why the emotions were that high. And even after the game finally ended, both sides said, hey, we get it. We've been tense with each other. We've had some really close games. We're fighting for a championship. Makes sense that everybody's hooted up. Nobody's trying to hurt anybody. Both sides said that.
Right.
And I don't mind it in football at all when you have two teams that are physical, getting after each other, don't like each other a whole heck of a lot. That's fine. What I can't stand is just the contrived rap or even the old school stuff that is largely out of baseball, which is, if they hit one of our guys, we're just going to automatically assume it was intentional. So then we're going to go and peg their guy, and each team just hits each other until they come out of the dugouts and fight like a bunch of little boys. It's really stupid.
Right.
Yeah. So don't care for that.
Yeah. And also a ball being pitched at your face at that 90 to 100 miles per hour.
Yep. Not great.
Dead.
Not great.
Good chance.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's hazardous. So, but speaking of people getting into fights, we have movies about fights to talk about.
Yes.
That's kind of the segue I'm going for. Anyway,
It kind of works.
it's a soft one.
I mean, if there's not a fight in a superhero movie, we have.
Why are we even watching it? Yeah, that's a great question. Interesting. We would never have to answer that question because we're not watching The Acolyte.
You don't like it?
Well, listen, there's not enough action. Episode, was it 6?
I haven't seen any of it.
A lot of action. Great. The rest of it.
So you did end up picking that up then.
I've watched bits and pieces. I've kept myself aware of it. And I gotta say, I'm not regretting not watching all of it. It's just not a story worth telling.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's just not. Like, maybe you could convince me there's 2 episodes out of all of this worth telling. Not 8. Not 8. So, but I digress. We're going to talk about vastly superior content today, Beans. We've got X-Men Apocalypse as the last X-Men movie on our quest of X-Men rewatches prior to getting to see Deadpool and Wolverine here in just, less than 2 weeks. The countdown is real, and that's exciting. Mm-hmm. We have Logan that we're going to recap as well, because we said, why not double dip? Double dipping is for champs, and we are champs, not chumps, so let's do it. There's plenty of quality news that we got to touch on as well. We've got trailers.
I know. I got a little nervous covering 2 movies today.
There's a lot to get through. We've got the first trailer for Captain America, Brave New World. First trailer for Batman, Cape Crusader. First trailer for Agatha, All Along. For those of you who are aware of the first Gladiator movie, because it was the only Gladiator movie, there's also a freaking trailer for Gladiator 2, because we were all asking for that. We were not.
No.
We were not.
Some people don't know what they're doing. Anyways, I digress.
Yeesh. And of course, we'll do another classic JP and the Beans top 5 for the good people out there. So, without further ado, let's get into it, Beans. X-Men Apocalypse. Let's start there right at the top. Came out in 2016, directed by our guy, Bryan Singer, the X-Men guy.
It was a senior in high school.
How about that?
Crazy.
That is absolutely
actually, I might have graduated by the time that movie came out.
Absolutely
doesn't matter.
No, that's all good. So a little additional context before we get into the cast of the movie. So something that I discovered that was actually quite fun, because we love doing this when we're talking about movies, is helping us recall what else came out that year. All right, well, Captain America, Civil War came out.
Okay.
Doctor Strange, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, Suicide Squad, the first, which actually is fortunate that there was a second Suicide Squad movie, come to think of it, and a little not that well-known movie called Deadpool, also came out in 2016.
It makes more sense now why this movie kind of just lives in, because you had those terrible DC movies that no one forgets because they were so bad. Wow. And then you had those great Marvel movies that did so well. Yes. That's like, oh yeah, of course we're going to remember this.
Yes.
And then X-Men Apocalypse kind of lives right in the middle of that.
Totally agree. Big year for superhero movies.
Yes.
Here's a fun little nugget I pulled out. This caught my eye. I went, wait a minute, Captain America, Civil War. I feel like there's a pattern here. Sure enough, every year that there was a Captain America movie, there was also a X-Men movie, of the young X-Men, if you will. 2011, Captain America First Adventure, X-Men First Class. 2014, Captain America Winter Soldier, X-Men Days of Future Past. 2016, here we are, Captain America Civil War, X-Men Apocalypse. What a fascinating coinkydink.
And yet Dark Phoenix decided to break that trend.
To its own demise.
Yes.
Huge mistake. But yeah, as you mentioned, a couple of DC bummers. Now, I will say, Batman v Superman, I can still watch it and enjoy it. It's not a great movie. Don't hear me say that. It's not a great movie. But there's enough in there where it just tickles my DC fancy.
It's a good thing I have a beer.
I love the introduction of Wonder Woman. That's a lot of fun. And we're just going to leave it at that. Suicide Squad is one of those movies that I was very excited for and very underwhelmed by.
Oh, yeah.
In the theater. That was incredibly bad.
It was...
I won't watch that ever again.
No, it was a hot mess. It was a hot mess. And you can definitely tell that the studio messed with that one a bunch. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, tough.
Yep.
Tough sailing.
Let's get into it since we got a lot to get through. So the cast, returning, of course, James McAvoy as Charles Xavier, Patrick Stewart, I wrote down here as Charles Xavier. Oh, this is my, old notes. Shame on me. Sorry, Pat, you're not allowed to be in this movie. James McAvoy only as Charles Xavier, Michael Fassbender as Magneto, Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, Nicholas Hoult as Beast, Lucas Till as Havoc, Evan Peters as Quicksilver, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, because it means we must always have Wolverine in an X-Men movie.
You do.
You can't get away from it.
He's the moneymaker.
Actually couldn't get away from it. Incredible that in all three of these young X-Men movies, he was in them. Every single one.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's true. It's true.
Josh Hellman is William Stryker. He's a good William Stryker. I like that.
Yeah, he's got that punchable face vibe going.
He does. You just want someone to really knock him out.
He reminds me of, I wonder if they're related. He reminds me of the guy who, in American Pie.
Okay. Jason Biggs?
Maybe. No.
No, I know who you're talking about. Yep. Sean, was it Sean William Scott?
Yes, that's who he reminds me
of. That's incredible.
Yes.
That's a really good comparison. They're definitely not related, but...
Like, they got that douchey vibe down really well.
Yes.
Not that they are douchebags, but, like, they just... It works. It's easy for them.
It's a good fit.
It's easy for them to do.
Makes me really, really, really want to watch Role Models.
Stifler.
Sean William Scott and Paul Rudd. Have you ever seen that? Gem of a comedy? Oh, my gosh. Do yourself a favor and watch it.
It's called Role Models?
Role Models.
Okay.
Yeah. They're fantastic together. Moving on. Also, Rose Byrne as Moira MacTaggart. Shows up.
Again.
She's back, just like we were all demanding. New to the crew, we got Oscar Isaac as Apocalypse. Hey, Oscar. Ty Sheridan as Cyclops. Sophie Turner as Jean Grey. Cody Schmidt-McPhee as Nightcrawler. What a last name. Schmidt-McPhee. Olivia Munn as Psylocke. Ben Hardy as Angel. And Alexandra Shipp as Storm.
Is Ben related to Tom?
No.
That's a
bummer, isn't it?
That is a super bummer.
It really should be. If you got the last name Hardy, if you're not related to Tom, get out of Hollywood. All right, Riles, let's start on the positive sides. You rewatched it for the first time in a while, as did I. What did you think? What were some positive takeaways from you?
I'll tell you what. When I first watched this movie, or back when I watched it, I was not thrilled with it. The second time, I'm like, okay, it's not as bad as I remember. Mm-hmm. It's still kind of just there.
Yes.
And I haven't really been able to pinpoint why that's the case.
Yep.
Of why it didn't hit the way that it should have.
I have a theory. We'll get into it.
So for me on that front, it was better than what I thought. I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. It's a solid 7.
Doesn't need higher than that.
Right.
Yep.
I think
it's 6 or 7 territory for sure.
Right. I don't think the story was bad enough to give it anything lower than that either. Like the story was fine. It made sense.
Yep.
I think with how the X-Men movies like handled themselves and they gave themselves a soft reboot.
Yes.
I think it's hard to like figure out the timelines just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like they kind of shift Wolverine again.
Mm-hmm.
And they so that whole detour kind of feels forced a little bit to get the Wolverine spot.
Very much so. Yeah.
So that was kind of like there. And then you had I think the big one for me too was Angel.
Mm-hmm.
Was kind of hard to get behind because I feel like in the original trilogy, he was presented to be like the same age as Pyro and Iceman at the time.
Yep.
So to have him come in and now he would have been probably around, Quicksilver's age.
Yep.
So putting him older than all of them a lot.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm wondering if this is just their way of saying, okay, because of Days of Future Past, the timeline has been shifted and we can do what we want for this movie.
Yeah. That's a great summation. What I really caught on to a couple weeks ago when we rewatched Days of Future Past, I really paid attention to the last couple of minutes of that movie. Because what I remembered prior to the rewatch was, I remember Wolverine having just like a very ambiguous conclusion to his story. Because on the one hand, we get Wolverine coming into the school and seeing Jean Grey alive, seeing Scott Summers alive, seeing Professor Xavier alive. And Professor Xavier says, "Oh, welcome back." But the movie doesn't end there. Instead, the movie goes back into the 70s and shows Wolverine being pulled out of the river by William Stryker, except, it's not William Stryker. It's Mystique disguised as William Stryker. And super ambiguous. There's no clear definition on what any of that really means. And furthermore, the voiceover of James McAvoy's Charles Xavier, why I really wanted to pay attention, essentially says there's infinite possibilities. Comics. He's really just saying comics. Yeah. Anything can happen. Which, just be clear about it. It was so intentionally vague. It was pretty obvious that they didn't know entirely how they wanted to conclude that movie for the sake of this particular group of characters that they had introduced in First Class. Like, they knew what they wanted to do to restore and undo the damage
terrible
perceived
ending.
from,
or not, I shouldn't say terrible ending,
but character deaths.
Yes, the sad ending of half of them survived.
Yeah, they wanted to redeem that. Okay, that's great. But they didn't know what to do with the First Class, with this young X-Men, and that is certainly part of what holds this movie back. Is I think Bryan Singer expected that everyone watching Apocalypse had just watched Days of Future Past, like literally minutes before watching Apocalypse. Because of some of the dialogue where they keep referencing Days of Future Past of, Mystique is the hero.
And First Class. They mentioned First Class quite a bit too.
Yeah. And so they were trying, but I don't even know if they knew what they were trying to pull for or pull towards. Like, I like the fact that we're back in the 80s and the focus is back on the original Young X-Men cast. Great. The look and the feel of the new cast members, very solid, right? Like, I like who they cast for Jean Grey, for Scott Summers.
Oh, yeah, it works.
Yep. For Kurt Wagner, excuse me. It's great. I even like that they tried to pull off Apocalypse without CGI. Like, kudos for the effort there. I don't mind that. I don't know that it really was effective.
We can get into that too.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I think with this movie, I love what you're saying with, 7 out of 10. I'm right there with you. Somewhere in the 6 or 7 out of 10 range. This movie has great individual sequences. And what I mean by that, I'm going to give you some examples. All right. Quicksilver has another outstanding scene.
Easily the highlight of this movie.
Seals it.
He is the most compelling character in all of this.
Yep. Magneto has a heart-wrenching
he just goes
opening sequence. Oh my gosh, like they're Peter Parkering this poor bastard.
Essentially, yeah.
But it's also validating our posture of, hey, Magneto as anti-hero. Like, they really leaned into that energy of Magneto as the anti-hero. Like, he is genuinely set aside any warlike tendencies, and he's going, no, I'm going to be domestic, have a wife, have kids, be a good contributing member of society. I've dropped the dream of any kind of, mutant dominance. I'm just going to be one of the humans as best as I can. And in spite of his best efforts, I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's very effective. Very effective. You have Apocalypse bestowing additional powers on different mutants. I love and dislike. It's a very weird blend. I love and dislike the scene where Angel gets his metal wings. It's so gross, but it's also awesome.
I love
the music is phenomenal, and our boy Ben Hardy, we're just going to assume he's a relative of Tom, does a terrific job of just showing the angst of how much this has to freaking hurt. The end result is just like, that is super cool.
Yeah, they did Angel a lot of favors in this movie.
So there's multiple really solid individual sequences. I mean, hell, Wolverine gets his chance to shine into shred. And enjoyable. Great. He's in his Weapon X form. Okay. But I don't think this movie brought it all together at any point. I think you had some really cool sequences, but there was just the lack of a strong, compelling reason of why all these things are happening. Like when Apocalypse gets rid of all the nukes, it's like, dude, did you guys not think about the ramifications of this? Like, he doesn't need to, first of all. So it's kind of a weird, like, why are you doing that?
You don't a power move.
Yeah, but you don't need to. And also, if you're the filmmakers, it's like, guys, okay, so you just made a world where nobody has a nuclear missile. Are you sure that's the world that you want to play in? Because now you're going to have to be cognizant of those rules moving forward. And it just felt like a kind of a throwaway. We're just going to get rid of all the nukes just to show what Apocalypse can do. It's like, I don't think that was the best move. I think Apocalypse can destroy the world better with the nukes, actually. You know, and so I'm going to use that. And so they just never quite got here's a really compelling reason. So it didn't quite stick the landing for me. A lot of cool individual moments, but nothing, too much telling, not enough showing.
Yeah. I get very picky with Apocalypse just because he's one of my favorite X-Men villains.
I mean, you can't kill him.
No.
You can't kill him.
That's like his
That's
thing.
the biggest crime. Like, you shouldn't be even, like, coming close to killing him in this movie.
I don't know if that body transferring thing is an actual thing from the comics, or they just used it for whatever purposes they wanted to use it for.
That was super vague. It's like, so the sun shines on this metal cap on top of a pyramid in comics.
Right.
That's just it? Like, there's no explanation of this is part of his power?
The way he built it, dope. When he built the pyramid, dope.
Visually very cool.
That was awesome. Yeah. But yeah, no, and here's the thing. I don't think Oscar Isaac is big enough for that role.
Yep.
Like, Apocalypse should be
He's an average-sized human being.
Yes. And Apocalypse should be jacked. And he should be menacing. Like, hovering over you like, oh, this is a big dude. Right? So I think that's where the look kind of bothers me a little bit. I guess I'm totally cool with them leaning into the Egyptian stuff because I think that's badass.
That was great. That was strong.
By the way, another thing we need to just compliment. Storm's African accent in this. Okay. Beautiful.
This
is beautiful.
Storm, perfect encapsulation of this movie. Horrific African accent. Okay. Why is she alone in Egypt?
What do you mean?
She's the only black person in all of Egypt.
I didn't even think about
it. Watching, I'm going, wait a minute. All right, you crushed the accent.
But why are you
The actress has a great look. Also, she is the only one that looks like her in Egypt. The rest of them look like Egyptians, and then you have this black girl running around. Can we have just some explanation? Like a mom or a dad somewhere. I'm an orphan. My parents get anything. But she's just there, and we're just supposed to go, thumbs up. Cool.
I also don't know how I feel about the touch that Apocalypse is the reason she has white hair. I thought that was an odd, upgrade, shown, right? Like, I get they're, showing the metamorphosis on most of these characters. But, and I think that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Because, for me, with Apocalypse, when he, picks his horsemen, right? They kind of don't have control of themselves anymore. They are pretty much just at Apocalypse's will. These guys were not. They had they could do whatever they wanted, essentially.
Right. When they turn on him, it's like, but why? Like, you knew what he was. You knew what he was going to do. Nothing changed.
Magneto and Storm switching sides, I thought made somewhat sense. Because Storm was like, oh, yeah. She saw Mystique fighting on the other side. And
right.
Like, oh, okay.
Right.
And they had that whole heart speech with... I think it was a bummer that they didn't mention Quicksilver's and his relationship. I think that would have been
really weird that they held that back, wasn't it?
I thought it would have been honestly perfect if he would have revealed it at that time as he's getting his leg broken. And he's like, oh, hey, Dad, because it would have been great for Eric's character to have all that loss and then just realize, oh no, I actually do still have family. I have a son.
Right? Why? Truly, why hold that back? That was such an odd... I felt like they overthought
Because I feel like that turn then makes way more sense.
You're actually right.
Don't get me wrong; they play into the him and Charles's relationship.
Yep.
Is what essentially won it over, which is kind of crazy in its own right. But at the same time, though, like I feel like that just adds on to it even more to be like, oh, I have a son. Holy crap!
Correct.
So
because it ties right back into that powerful opening scene for his character where he's so devastated by the loss that it leads him to Apocalypse. And so now he has, again, a child that can help compel him to pull out of Apocalypse's influence. So no question. It would have made all the sense in the world. I think it's just so weird to me that the X-Men movies can't get away from killing off characters poorly. Why are we killing Havoc off, and even like kind of off screen, right? Where he creates the explosion and we're just told, well, he was closest to the explosion. It's like, it's okay if his character dies, but not like that.
Well, and see, doesn't that make more sense if they're going to kill him to have Apocalypse do it in front of Scott?
Yes, just like we had with our dear sweet Kevin Bacon.
Right.
He takes Darwin down in front of all
everybody.
Of that. Yes.
Again, wrong choice for the character to do that for. Killing the guy that can't die, you kill.
So what?
2 of these movies.
Exactly.
Crazy. But just to have that would have made...
No, it just didn't make sense.
It would have done Havoc a lot more justice, because they were... In this movie, they built him up like he was actually an important part of the X-Men as a whole.
And none of his time on screen are you going, okay, let's move on to somebody else. He was perfectly fine. I'm not saying he was a scene stealer, but he was great. He
wasn't allowed to steal the scene either.
Correct. He was well suited for his role. It's like, wow, why are we just disposing of this guy? There's no need. That's just useless. And then, again, you can't build up the bad guy to be as extraordinarily formidable as he is. And that was effective. You kill him. You got to find a different way. You can't kill this guy.
I feel like you have to go for the slumber route again.
Yes.
Because that's the only thing that worked.
There is no doubt.
They build that up in the beginning of the movie. They're like, oh no, like we have to drop an entire pyramid on this guy and stop the transfer and then hope to God it works. So, because everybody that was up against him in the pyramid died.
Yep.
Horrible deaths.
Yep.
And to be fair, his horsemen also died. Very horrible deaths. But it took an entire pyramid collapsing on him. And it felt like he was just fodder to build up the next movie for Jean to be this absolute unit way sooner in the timeline this time than in X-Men 3.
What ticks me off is it's so freaking lazy. It's like there is more than the die option. Like you just on this podcast just said, well, why not just have him go back to sleep? Yep, that's an option. Why not have him escape? Why is that so bad? It's okay if he escapes. It's okay if he gets... This mother trucker should be impossible to kill. You cannot introduce a villain of this level, of this amount of ability and strength. Freaking kill him. You can't.
He is a trilogy villain.
There's no
that could
doubt.
be over a three movie period. To me, he is the X-Men equivalent of Thanos.
Yes.
If you build him up correctly.
Yeah. So it just drives me so nuts with these movies because I want to just fully embrace the X-Men movies, right? And there's moments where it's so worthwhile, it's so rewarding, and then there's just foolishness where it's like, what are you doing? Like you didn't have, it's either lazy or you didn't have a clear plan in place. You just said, we're just going to freaking wing it. It's like, you have to be more responsible with these characters. You just do.
And
to do it multiple times. Just to kill off random characters. Like, come on now.
Right. And here's another thing, and this is more of a personal, because I think she's fine in these movies. Mm-hmm. It is so weird to me to see Mystique go from this, secret assassin, right next to Eric always, to they turn her into a martyr and a hero. And it's like, this doesn't really fit this character.
Correct.
I understand why they did it. They get Jennifer Lawrence in there. You kind of need to make Mystique more of that level of hype, right? But at the same time, that's just not who she is.
Yeah. No, it feels like a lack of appreciation and understanding for who these characters are. And they're turning them into something other than. And listen, we've talked a lot on this podcast that you can have alternate takes, but then they have to be well developed and well fleshed out. And I just don't think that was the case here. I don't think those moves proved to be for the benefit of the movies.
No, and there's so many other choices too. Like you could have picked a lot of X-Men to fill that role for her. It didn't have to be her. It didn't have to be Wolverine either. You got a lot to choose from for that spot. So it just is mind-boggling to me because then it's like, do you then get her back to what she was in that original trilogy, or is she just this now?
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. It just, I think X-Men Apocalypse is just such a perfect encapsulation of so much promise, so much opportunity, where so many of the casting choices are outstanding. The individual moments that are throughout these movies are so strong, and you just don't quite get over the hump. You just can't quite get out of your own way, and it's too bad. It's too bad. And listen, the X-Men characters are still out there. We know that now there's all kind of opportunity for them to show up in the MCU proper. So it's just a matter of time before we get another iteration. My hope is that a lesson has been learned or will have been learned of, first and foremost, don't kill characters off so doggone fast. Like you just don't.
Well, MCU is notorious for that anyways.
And they are. I know. I'm not optimistic here. Don't kill them off so quickly. And know where you're going.
Right.
But don't
have a plan.
Jiminy Christmas.
Have a plan.
Is it that hard? Is it? I don't think that it is.
No. Well, I mean, this also goes into the fact we can talk about all their end credit scene trailers.
Oh my gosh.
Because think about this. We've had back with the Wolverine, that end credit scene, it shows the classic costume. Everybody's hyped that we're going to finally get the classic costume on Wolverine. Never happened. Yep. This movie was Nathan Essex taking Wolverine's DNA. Dope. For those of you who don't know, that's Mr. Sinister, who's a great X-Men villain who can stand on his own 2 feet. He doesn't need another villain to have his own be the main guy, right? Never had him, never seen him. Mm-hmm. Have him be teased, and then that never paid off, as far as I understand. Right. So,
correct.
I just they're terrible with their end credit scenes when it comes to that stuff.
It's just a genuine, and it's what we're seeing the last few years now with Marvel. This is what happens when you don't have a solid direction of, and listen, you have to say no to certain things, right? You have to say no to certain characters, no to certain stories. And really what you're doing is you're actually just saying not yet. Okay. You're going to have the opportunity, if you want, to get to every single character in the lexicon, to get to every single story that is available to you. And by the time you're ready, you can just remake the story, right? 20 or 30 years down the road. So just say not yet to certain things. Like, we're not going to kill that character yet. We're not going to tell that story yet. Or we're not even going to introduce that character yet. Because truly, you have every character, every opportunity available to you. And so also because of that, like, if you don't have a compelling story to tell, don't tell it. Don't tell us a mediocre story just because you're going, well, we want to send this message or we want to get that character in here. You have to have an outstanding story. Right. Otherwise, it's just not going to be worth it. And what is story built around? Character development. Mm-hmm. And there's enough of those moments in this trilogy to give it life. Like, it's not a bad trilogy by any stretch of the imagination. But there's also not quite enough of that character development because it either doesn't take place in large enough quantities or it's inconsistent, like with Mystique's character. Right. Where she's Charles Xavier's friend in First Class. And she's this vicious killer in Days of Future Past. and then she's a martyr in Apocalypse.
Leader of the X-Men.
And to leader of the X-Men, and none of these progressions or changes were shown. We were just told, hey, so Mystique's killing a bunch of people. Or, well, Mystique is now heralded as this hero, and she's going around saving mutants. You just told us. You didn't show us. We didn't get to see how her character transformed, which is ironic because that's all her character does. Is
maybe that's why she's
into other things.
That might be why she's flip-flopping all the time.
French toast.
So
I don't want to come off as too negative about this movie. I do like the movie.
It was solid. It's a solid movie.
It is.
And
it's solid.
And I will say this, and I've said it before. I actually hope, because I haven't seen the second half of this, I hope they bring Michael Fassbender back for the MCU. Yeah. I think that's a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. I would actually like James McAvoy to come back. I think he's a great Professor X.
I agree.
So I hope they bring those two back. I don't think there's any reason to recast them or whatever. Mm-hmm. Just bring those two back on board.
Yeah. No, totally agree.
So
totally agree. All right, well, let's move on from Dear Sweet Apocalypse. Speaking of Mr. Sinister, he was rumored to be a part of this movie, Logan. He wasn't. Spoilers. Sorry, it came out in 2017. If you haven't seen it,
he should have been.
Shame on you.
In my opinion,
I disagree. Instead, we get Logan. Came out in 2017, directed by James Mangold and written by James Mangold. Mr. Mangold had the honor of also writing and directing The Wolverine, which is the Wolverine movie that came out prior to Days of Future Past.
He also retired Indiana Jones.
Yes. So, a little mixed bag for Mr. Mangold, but
that's a fair critique.
Yep. But what you can't say is that he doesn't know what he wants to do.
That's true.
Yep. So a little context: we're just 1 year removed, okay, from Apocalypse.
I didn't realize it was that back to back.
Kind of wild when you think of it,
especially because they were because Deadpool is the first rated R movie, mm-hmm. and so it was surprising for them to just go and jump to the rated R for Logan. Well, right after that, because they were like, "Oh, we're
obviously already in production."
Right.
But that's a good point. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the success of Deadpool helped, because you can always take a rated R movie and go, "We're just gonna dress it up and do it. We're gonna release it as a PG-13 version." So I'm sure that helped propel the powers that be to say, all right, let's keep it R-rated. So in 2017, and this just reminds me, what a just unique and glorious time of comic book movies we were in. Spider-Man Homecoming came out in 2017. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Thor Ragnarok, Wonder Woman, and the Lego Batman movie. Some freaking bangers.
That's a good year too.
That is a great freaking year.
We're spoiled.
Oh my gosh.
We were spoiled.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. So, a lot of great films. And in the midst of all those great films, drops Logan with, of course, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier, Daphne Keane as Laura. First time we've seen Daphne Keane in anything. Boyd Holbrook, which I don't understand how the guy's in Hollywood with a name like that, but kudos to you, Boyd. Boyd Holbrook as Pierce, leader of the Reavers. Stephen Merchant as Caliban. Maybe it's Stefan. Interesting. I'll have to ask him. Never met, but I'll figure it out. And Richard Grant as Dr. Rice, prior to performing as a phenomenal variant of Loki in the Loki TV show.
Oh, yeah. It's like
it's classic Loki.
Somewhere.
Yeah. So there you go. Riles, what do we like here, my man?
It's a solid. It's interesting. It's good.
Where are you at personally with this one? Do you love this movie? Do you like the movie? Do you respect the movie but not necessarily love it?
I definitely. I think I came down from the hype from the first watch to the second watch.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. I think it's probably the best solo Wolverine movie out there.
That is true.
If you're looking for a solo one.
That is true.
It kind of goes into the whole timeline thing again, because it's never really explained in deep. It's implied that Professor X had something to do with the issues of there being no mutants left, but it doesn't it doesn't really go in depth with it. So you're kind of confused, and it's kind of, they're finally bringing up oh yeah, he's dying from being poisoned by the metal, which is fine. but never like implied ever before this that could be a problem in the future. So there's like some like technical details you can keep going into.
Yeah.
I think the overall story, fantastic. I think it's very fitting. You see a broken Wolverine go through this whole progression for himself of becoming what he used to be one more time before it's too late, saving his daughter, which I love their relationship. Their relationship is fantastic.
Yes.
But so overall, like this is a very good movie in my opinion. It's just there are some things that I wish either would have been like subtly shown, because I mean, you do have that like subtle throwaway line right before Professor X dies, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I was you weren't gonna tell me, but I kind of remember what happened in Westchester," and I was like, "Well, no one else does. Why don't you share the class?" Right?
It's your sharing time, right? You're gonna share.
So that's where I guess I have my issues, if there are any, but it's a good movie. It's a very good movie.
Yeah, it is. I fall into the camp with this movie of I admire and appreciate it more than I enjoy it. Okay, it's such a somber movie, and that's a compliment. Okay, it's not actually easy to make a somber movie that is compelling. Like, it's easy to make a depressing movie. This isn't a depressing movie. There's weight to it. Like, we've traveled for a while with Wolverine, some with Professor Xavier, not nearly the same time as Wolverine, but to see the two of them in such dire straits and so much less than what they were is so difficult. And yet Wolverine, good grief, that son of a gun keeps pulling out the freaking heart of gold. Why is he even carrying the professor around, right? Why is he caring for him? He doesn't need to.
No.
For his own sake. It's easier and better if he doesn't. But he continues to show that in spite of the violence that has in many ways defined and shaped his life, it hasn't become all that he is. Even though so many people who observe him, like one of my favorite scenes of the movie is when Pierce sneaks into Wolverine's limo, and before he leaves, like, I'm a big fan, by the way. Right? But that's how he's viewed by those that aren't his friends, is just the killer, right? And that's obviously a very significant part of who he is.
Right.
But that's not the most defining aspect of his character. And that is what this movie does so well, is it's this character study of an extraordinarily violent person who is continually on this path of redemption. And part of that redemption is by taking care of Professor Xavier. Part of it is by taking in Laura, even when he doesn't want to. And then ultimately dying for Laura and for all the other kids. And it's great storytelling. Because again, you show it. You don't say, hey, Logan at the end, he chose to die for this kid. You're like, that's great, but can we see it happen? Like, you get to see all the character transformation take place right in front of you. So I admire that aspect of it. It's just a hard movie to enjoy because he just takes a freaking beating. Just an absolute beating. Professor Xavier dies. That's really sad. But at least when that happens, it's effective. But I am with you as far as you're really vague with this tease on, so what happened? Like, what did Xavier do to apparently kill all these other mutants? And also, why is Wolverine sick? Why is his healing deteriorating now? Right. And I found the explanation lacking. Like, well, I've poisoned the water supply.
Okay.
I don't believe you.
No, right, no. Again,
they're not killing everybody.
Right, you would think it would be more of a problem, because I think the whole point of him being able to house the adamantium is because of the healing factor. So for it to now, like, did you get more that's increasing, that's where I get confused.
I
Because they do say they're like antimantium is the only thing that can kill us.
mm-hmm.
So if that's the case,
I just found that disappointing. Quite frankly, it was set in a movie that's so well detailed in so many other aspects. That seemed very thin.
Right.
Very thin.
I would agree with that.
And it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the movie. It just means it's an unfortunate, it's a barrier. You get kind of caught on that. Now, there's a lot of positives, which we need to spend time on. Okay, so if you want to see what really happens when Wolverine hits someone with his claws, wish granted, you got this movie.
Very realistic.
Yep. A little different than X-Men 2, where he's taking out all the soldiers and nobody's bleeding. There's a lot of blood.
I will say this, because this is one thing I forgot about Apocalypse.
Do it.
Can we talk about that one part where he just decapitates all those people's heads?
Mm-hmm.
In that opening scene, you're like,
oh,
dang. Yeah, they established him. I'm like, he's here.
Yeah.
He's here.
Yeah.
They do that here, too. Because it's hilarious when Daphne Keane, yes, Laura, just rolls the head out. I was like, yeah, what's up? And then everybody's like, whoa, hold on, what?
And you see Pierce's reaction of, whoa, calm down. It's like, all of these muscle-bound, armed to the teeth dudes are terrified of this tiny little person.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. And again, they show it, and somehow it's not ridiculous.
Right.
Somehow it works. She takes them all freaking down. It's incredible. Like Laura's introductory fight scene is pure savagery. It's incredible.
It's fantastic.
It's incredible. And it's not the only time that she gets to tango effectively. I had forgotten, this is fast forwarding way ahead to the end of the movie, I had forgotten that she takes X-24 to task near the end of the movie.
Yeah.
She whoops up on his butt. Holy smokes. She's really, really vicious.
I love how she yells the whole time, too. It's awesome.
Gosh, absolutely. It's so visceral, right? Because, listen, it's uncomfortable. You don't want to see a kid kill someone. Like that. There's something inherently that's like, this is messed up. This isn't okay. Like, first of all, it's not good when adults kill each other, all right?
Right.
But then it's a kid, and not only is the kid killing people, but doing so in extraordinarily violent, ineffective fashion. Holy smokes. So there's just this naturally, oh, man, yikes to it. But it's freaking effective. I also like how for all of the mutants in this movie, there's not a single one that shows up that's OP'd.
No.
Okay? It takes effort. It takes energy. It takes strain. And that's something that gets lost so often in superhero movies that, in particular in the last few years, where that's no big thing to, boom, I just shot a big fat freaking energy beam right out of my fist and it took that whole building out. You're welcome. What I love is when you can see with some of the other mutants whose names we don't actually know, but the mutant who's able to just like generate some kind of force field, or the mutant who's able to raise the earth up to flip the truck over on top of X-24. Like when you can see the strain that it takes. And this is something actually First Class did really well with Magneto, and Michael Fassbender is one of the reasons why his portrayal is so phenomenal. You can see in his face and his body, like, this is a challenge. It's not just I'm going to move that boat over here. Thank you very much. Like, no, it takes effort and energy. I love it when superhero movies do that, because it should be hard. It should be hard. It's this terrible thing with Star Wars where all of a sudden everybody can use the Force super well and super easily, where it's just a boom, Force pushed a freaking mountain out of the way. No. It's got to be difficult. And so this movie does, I think, a solid job of following its own rules. And listen, the origin story of Laura and the other children,
brutal.
Holy,
it's brutal.
Folks, man. If that doesn't grip you, you're deader than dead.
It's true. It's true.
That is. I did not enjoy watching that again, but it was really effective. Holy smokes. And how about the fact, to pivot hard to that, How about the fact that Laura doesn't speak until 97 minutes into the movie?
I think when I first watched it, I remember being a little frustrated, but like watching it the second time, I think it's hilarious because she just wasn't talking to him out on purpose. She's like, "I don't like you."
Correct. And she finally does speak. It's in Spanish,
and he goes,
and he's like, "Wait, you can talk?"
Yeah, and then she just switches to English for just a little bit, and then goes right back to Spanish. She's like, "Wait a minute,
oh,
you're pulling two fast ones on me right now." It's great. Fantastic. I will say, I'll say one thing that bummed me out, like thinking about this, and it's not that the character is bad, I just don't feel like he fits too well. It felt weird for me that it was Caliban. Especially going from the first time we see him in a movie is X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah, just a year before.
And he's like an information raider, getting people in and out of places. And now he's like this more sympathetic, oh, the sun scares me kind of a character. So I feel like that hits home more if it was either somebody from Wolverine's past specifically, or somebody from the X-Men that was able to survive the whole thing. So that bums me out a little bit because I feel like there's some missed opportunities there. But what do you do?
Here's a question for you that I still don't have a really satisfying answer to. Does X-24 work for you?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Because I think it is more telling for Wolverine, because I think in a way it's him fighting who the world thinks he is. And it's just him.
It's symbolic as much as anything.
Correct. So him going against this guy, kind of losing to him essentially. And then towards the end with the help of Laura being able to overcome. And it's kind of this thing where it's like, he's always needed other people to help him get through things. He did not have the X-Men anymore. Professor X was what little was left. And he wasn't really there anymore. And so to have like Laura kind of come in and like establish herself as like that like little piece of family he had left. I think it's just, and she helps essentially, him get past the killer. So I think symbolically it works really well. Is it weird?
It is.
I feel like you just do a different I think Dakin would be really cool here instead, where it's another the Dakin's his son, so maybe not work as well, but
it's a variant rather than such a direct.
Just another or
I've been kicking that around.
Sabretooth would have been great here instead, like a Sabretooth clone. And you go into Sabretooth died, and so this is a clone of Sabretooth, and Wolverine's got to deal with him one more time.
I go back and forth on it because it is weird. I remember the very first time watching this movie when it showed X-24 as Logan, essentially just in younger prime form. And it never, I just haven't been able to pick a lane. It's like, no, it's not bad, but it doesn't quite do it for me. So I almost wish, and I go back and forth, but I totally understand the symbolic nature of it, because you're absolutely right. It's literally showing very directly that Logan has to conquer his former self, his past.
And isn't it trippy to you too, that they just give both her and X-24 the animanium, and they don't really go into. I mean, I think they show with X-23 her going through all of the surgeries and stuff.
Right.
But for the other Wolverine, they don't really explain it too much, I guess. But this is where I get a little bothered because honestly, Mr. Sinister would have worked 10 times better here than the doctor guy that they used. I mean, I understand, I guess, towards the end why, because he's like, oh yeah, my father created you. And then for him to be like, yeah, I killed him. He's like, yeah, that sounds about right. Should see him shit his pants a little bit. It's fantastic. But I just, when it comes to the cloning and stuff, I feel like Sinister just... It makes more sense when he does it, I guess.
Yep.
So
I agree. How do we feel? Last question on this topic, then we'll keep moving. And listen, we're going to have some fun with this, I am sure, in Deadpool and Wolverine. There is no doubt. But how do we feel, fresh off the heels of rewatching this movie, about the fact that, and now we're getting Wolverine again, 7 years later in a Deadpool Wolverine movie, when this was supposed to be it. This was supposed to be the swan song.
I love it personally because I feel like in some ways it is a nice little goodbye to the character.
Yep.
But at the same time, is that the ending you want to give for Wolverine, or do you want a happier ending for him? And I think it's kind of like a pick and choose, because to me, this still isn't that Wolverine. So I think this is
attached.
Right. This way, it doesn't actually hurt that ending.
Yeah.
And it's just a different variant of Wolverine in this.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I think you're going to get the best of both worlds, where you can be like, that was a send off to that version of Wolverine. And then if he stays on for this movie and then comes back for Secret Wars and is done there, you can write him off into the sunset for Secret Wars too.
Sure.
So in a way, I think it works for both.
Yeah.
Oddly enough.
Yep, I agree. I enjoy Hugh Jackman such a great deal as what an original take. Everyone enjoys Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I think the biggest bummer of all the X-Men movies is that for as great as Hugh Jackman was, his character was just put through the ringer with some good movies, some terrible movies. And so, to a certain respect, you see this movie and you go, hey, okay, finally they give him a solo movie that's made well.
Right.
That's made well. But I, too, am looking forward to Deadpool and Wolverine because it's the perfect place to do something that ridiculous, to bring back a character that you have literally killed off in magnificent fashion, to say, we're going to bring him back. Like, Deadpool has the perfect measure of irreverence to go, yeah, we're doing it. And so I'm not bothered by it at all. I'm looking forward to it. And I hope, in some ways, that it will lead to a maybe even more satisfying send-off, because it works, but it's also just depressing. It's like, yikes, he's super dead. And I don't know, it's hard to feel good about it. Like, I understand why he has to die at the end of this movie, but I don't leave it feeling very fulfilled, if that makes sense.
I think it's even worse when you think about it along the lines of, we just got done with Days of Future Past.
Yep.
And when they end it, they end it on a very good note because everybody's brought back.
Right.
So then it goes back to everybody died again. So they were just meant to die at some point. So I feel like in that sense, it contradicts everything that movie did.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I almost take this movie as almost an alternate like ending for like maybe the original timeline.
Sure.
I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know, because then the original, it's a whole thing.
Well,
but
point is, we're excited to have more Wolverine, and finally in the classic suit. Who knew?
Thank God.
Who knew it was actually possible? Everybody? Wow. Hey,
and it looks good. It does not look corny, because that's where
it looks phenomenal.
Look, I know everybody wants an accurate Wolverine suit. That can be done wrong so easily. It would be so easy to mess that up. Yeah. And it looks like this is going to work. And I'm very thrilled about it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. All right, let's move into the news roundup notes of our podcast for today. Hey, we've got trailers dropping for days. That's kind of nice. We're going to go in chronological order in terms of their release date, with the exception of the first trailer for Gladiator 2. It's out there. It happened. All I'm going to say is I would like for it to be good. But here's the reality. It's either going to be terrific or it is going to be garbage. There will not be a middle ground. So my expectations, I'm holding on to quite loosely. Love Denzel. Love Pedro Pascal.
It's a good cast.
It's a great
from what I
cast.
understand.
But Ridley Scott has had great casts before, and he's just pooped all over it. So Ridley Scott is my. I don't have confidence in Dear Sweet Ridley.
Okay.
So we'll see. All right.
Fair enough.
First trailer for Batman, Cape Crusader, with the release date of August 1st. Hey, a TV show that I didn't even know was coming out. I didn't even know I needed. And now I see the trailer. I'm going, I need this. This is fantastic. It's got an old school look. Reeks of Batman, the animated series. Bruce Timm, of course, big part of the creative team behind this series, so no surprise. And, of course, it's the first time with our guy, Hamish Linklater, voicing Batman. And he sounds phenomenal.
He did. It took me a little bit to adjust, but that's also because I'm so used to Kevin Conroy.
Correct.
So, and especially when you see Bruce Timm, you're like, oh, it's Kevin Conroy.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
That adjustment period is probably going to be there for me a little bit, but I think it's good. I think I just need to hear it more.
Yep.
And it more, and it'll be fine.
It sounds strong. The look is fantastic. It's such a, and again, all the credit to Bruce Timm for this, but to somehow like have Batman set in what looks like the 1920s, but it's also not the 1920s. It's just a Gotham City where that is the style, that is the design. That's
I was
the
thinking
aesthetic.
the same thing.
Yeah, it's not the 1920s. It just looks like the 1920s. I don't know what 19s it is. It's probably in some kind of the 19s, but it's not the 20s.
Well, and all the characters have very, very classic first appearance looks. Because Catwoman looks like she first appeared because she's got a cape for some reason. And then I think for Clayface, that's a very accurate first look for Clayface. Yeah. So the only one that's very like hard to get behind is Harley Quinn because I read an article on what they were going for with her. They wanted to switch it. So her Harleen phase will be very happy-go-lucky, and then when she goes to Harley Quinn, it's I'm gonna kill you, very serious vibe, which is terrifying. Did you see what she looks like?
Totally different colors.
It is a horrific look for that character. Yep. She's gonna be scary.
Yeah. It's here's what's a little odd to me. The only part of this that's really odd to me is so I can't help but see the Batman the Animated Series in my head. Okay, that was a series for kids. Now it's also a fairly intense series. Like it's for kids, and yet you're going, geez, how hard were kids in the 90s?
Well, it just goes back to the fact that they were not scared to like show kids life lessons. Because that's what I had for my cartoons.
Yep.
All my cartoons growing up were that. They were borderline, but not like terribly terrifying dark, but it was serious like things to go through. And now you look at some of these current cartoons and you're like,
what are we doing here?
There's nothing here.
Yeah. I am not sure who the target audience is with this show. I'm truly, and I don't mean that as a criticism or as a negative. I just don't actually know. It's right on the edge of, so is this for me, the adult, or is this for someone who's 12? I don't know. I'm intrigued by it.
I am leaning towards 16 and up for target audience.
It feels like a little bit more of a...
It feels like a more serious animated take. Yeah. And they're just they're like, hey, let's just do it where you're seeing Batman become Batman. Right. Like he just started. It's fresh. He's got all these new villains coming out of the woodwork. Yep. I love that line in the trailer where he's like, you can get one of us, but there's going to be another one that's going to come out and try to take you out now.
Yep.
So.
Yep. He's like, okay, whatever, going. There we go. Yeah, looks great. All right, first trailer also for Agatha all along, coming out September 18th. Beans, you watched the trailer.
Yep.
Good job.
Yep.
Here's what I'll say.
It's there.
It's there. True. I was genuinely... Two things. I'm going to preface this for the first thing. I'm not going to watch this show.
Probably not. No.
Okay? But not because I saw the trailer and thought it looks like crap. I actually watched the trailer and thought it looks good. But I don't like scary things. I don't like scary movies. I don't like horror movies. So this is, and that is definitively there is that element in this series. And good on you. Like, you're actually saying, hey, we're trying to do a very distinct tone, a very distinct style here. That's great. It's not my style.
Compared to the rumors, what the rumors were, I believe musical came out at one point. Did it not? Pretty sure it did.
It did.
That's horrifying.
So, and listen, Kathleen Hahn, fantastic. I enjoy her a great deal. April Ludgate, I know it's not actually
Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah, I know.
She looks fantastic.
She looks terrific. So if you don't mess this up in terms of put them on the screen as frequently as possible, you're going to have a really effective show. Again, not one that I'm going to watch, but not because I'm being a weirdo about, I just don't think it's going to be very good. I actually think it will, or has a chance to be good. It's just 100% the opposite of what I want to watch. I don't want to be scared. I don't want to be weirded out. And this is supposed to be not horror. That's not accurate, but something more in the like the Beetlejuice vein, where it's kind of gross and there's horror elements of it. I just don't enjoy that. I can't watch that and get done with it and go, that was great. I'm glad I did that. I get done with that and I go, I'm cold and I'm weirded out and I just wish I could watch something happier now.
Yeah. The only thing that, like, even it would be appealing to me is if they, like, hint at Scarlet Witch coming back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the only thing I would actually be genuinely curious about. Is like, oh, yeah, so Darkhold, it's back in play.
Right.
Or whatever. Or it's not, you know, whatever.
Right.
Whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But establish that she didn't die? Mm-hmm. That'd be kind of cool. So, I don't know.
There's potential there.
I don't know.
So, hey, color me encouraged and still not watching. First trailer for Captain America.
This one's exciting. This one I am pumped for.
Brave New World, February 14th, 2025. Get your Valentine Day date down on the calendar.
Yeah.
That's what you think.
It looks good.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Sam looks like he's back in action, ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
They are bringing in the new Falcon, which that means that paid off. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah's back.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he's
apparently going rogue.
He makes a mistake here.
Do not shoot the president.
Yes.
Doesn't end well.
So I love the line from Harrison Ford being like, "Oh yeah, they said I had to shave the mustache to get voters."
Right.
Hilarious.
Lose the mustache or lose the
What a
election.
way to like subtly point that it's a recast, you know?
Right.
So,
Incredible.
I am actually, after this trailer, I am more excited for Harrison Ford than I was originally. Because, again, I think the original actor for Thunderbolt Ross, William Hurt, correct?
Correct.
Was such a great casting for Ross.
He was perfect.
That it was genuinely sad to see it not be able to be paid off.
Yeah.
But if anyone's going to replace him, Harrison Ford's a good choice.
Totally correct.
And I feel like he has a very good Hulk face.
Yep.
He has a very good, like, we don't have to do a lot, and it'll work really well. And I think it's
just necessarily use our imaginations too hard either.
That's because he's just an angsty guy.
Yeah.
He's an angsty dude.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to work great
He's
on
a
that.
classic curmudgeon.
So I was bummed that we didn't get any, like, hints at, like, some of the other villains, if there are any other ones. Because I feel like Red Hulk is going to ride that line between hero and villain throughout the whole thing.
We got Giancarlo Esposito in there. Definitely as a villain. We just don't know who.
Is he? Because, see, what I heard he was rumored as was like a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
I gotcha. See, I was watching that trailer and going, villain. Now, it doesn't mean you're probably right, or that rumor could be true, but maybe he's S.H.I.E.L.D. agent gone rogue.
Well, but, you know, if you also think about it this way, if he's connected to the president, there's a good chance he's also just riding the line because he just works for the president. He's doing what he thinks is best for the government. Yeah. So
strong Winter Soldier vibes here, right?
100%. I'm super stoked. I mean, Isaiah Bradley turning that's like something's not adding up here. Right. So I know the Serpent Society was rumored to be in this movie, and I think subtly confirmed by the McDonald's toys that was released 7 months early. But I am genuinely like excited about them showing up if they're done right. So who knows?
Did we get Bucky in this? Like I just
I
can't
don't
help but
think
see Sam
so.
Wilson and not, and I'm going, where's my guy Bucky?
He should be,
right?
but I think he's off with the Thunderbolts.
Stinker.
Which is stupid. Because I would have loved him in this movie. Their dynamic is perfect.
It is. It is. I'd love to see a continuation of those two together. Here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a weird one because it is certainly one of the highlights of the trailer. But is showing Red Hulk, is that the right move here? Did they need to do that?
I think we already knew. So I don't think it hurts.
Okay.
So in a way, I think it's them getting people to think they showed their hands.
I hope so.
But
I hope that's what it is.
But they didn't.
Yep.
Because
I know what you mean.
Because we've already known that he was coming. I think it builds hype to be like, oh, the Hulk's back. But think about it this way.
Yep.
The leader was confirmed for this movie.
Correct.
We got none of him. Yep. So he's looming in the background somewhere. Right. Serpent Society is in there, so they're looming in the background of something. I bet there's other people with hands to play. How cool would it be if we got Red Guardian in this? It's not going to happen because he's with the Thunderbolts, but to have those other presences from other countries looming around.
Yep.
If it's to be believed that the Eternal got stuck in the Earth mid-birth is at play here for whatever reason.
Right.
I will be interested to see who's making the moves for it. So I think it's their way of being like, oh, Falcon and Red Hulk are going to fight each other, but it's not going to be for long because then they're going to have to team up and take on something bigger than themselves. That's how that plays off to me. So I hope,
I like that.
What I do hope is they play off the heat for the Red Hulk.
Right.
Instead of just being like, oh, hey, here's a Savage Hulk. Mm-hmm. We have another one now. Mm-hmm. So everybody gets what they want. Yeah. I want them to be like, the angrier he gets, you just start seeing the ground around him melt.
Right.
From the heat.
Right.
So, and because he can overheat too, by the way.
It looks fun. And I'm willing to be all in on Sam Wilson as Captain America. My preference during that show, right, when it was Falcon and Winter Soldier, was I wanted to see Bucky get the run as Captain America. And that's simply because I really enjoyed that comics run where Bucky took on the Captain America mantle for a piece. However, Sam Wilson as Captain America, I'm in. I mean, I just hope they don't beat over the head that you're not Steve Rogers too much. We know. Right. Let him be.
Yeah.
Just let him be. I don't need that as a thematic element of this movie. I feel like we already did that in the show.
Well, it also feels like it's just a subtle jab at our country as a whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we're in the greatest of places right now overall, but at the same time.
What would tell you that?
Yeah. At the same time, it's let's not get too in depth with the politics here, preferably, because that's not going to be a fun ride for me.
No, or none of us want.
And by the way, no one wants that right now, especially right now.
Nope.
Can promise you that.
No, not at all.
So,
and I understand there's a professional wrestler that's supposed to appear in this movie at some point. Yes,
my boy Seth Rollins. He's supposed to be one of the Serpent Society. I saw some rumor that he got cut from the movie. I hope that's not true. I hope he's in it because he will be fantastic.
Yes,
he's so good in the WWE. He'd be fantastic in this. He's such a good villain. It's not even crazy. So hopefully Seth, our Iowa boy, is in there.
Yep. Here's what's pretty cool. Okay, there is an opportunity if you want to feel optimistic again. All right, and I'm not saying get your hopes up. I'm just saying, dream a little bit here. We've got Deadpool and Wolverine coming out, as we know, here in just 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks. Agatha all along looks like it knows what it wants to be. That's great. And then we have Captain America Brave New World coming out in February, which isn't as far away as we may think that it is. It is possible that the MCU is getting some identity back here.
Thank God.
Because I'll tell you what, all three of these movies have, 2 movies, 1 show, have distinctly different feels and tones. And that is something that has certainly lacked in the last several years. It's been a oatmeal-y blend of blech. And you've got 3 properties that are coming out that are very, very different in their approach. And so I'm choosing to feel optimistic. Again, no, I'm not getting my hopes up, but I am choosing to feel hopeful that, hey, we could be on the way to turning a corner here and getting into a much more hopeful and positive direction in the not too distant future.
Agreed.
So, color me optimistic. All right, Beans, it's time.
Top 5.
Top 5. Without further ado, another classic JP and the Beans top 5. Today's top 5 is the top 5 clones in comics, as determined by us, of course, JP and Beans. Beans, you go first.
Now, we talked about this, so I just want to establish this before we get into it. There are not a lot of clones in comics.
Actually aren't.
Which is true and not true. Like, I feel like all the clones aren't significant enough.
There's a lot of terrible clones.
Right. They don't stick around
and
establish themselves as actual clones, right? So, and we've also figured out there's only like 3 people that get cloned all the time.
Yeah.
So,
it's abusive.
It goes to show, you know, and of course it's the popular characters. So,
yeah, it's ridiculous.
Without further ado,
get it.
My number 5 is Bizarro.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just have to establish him out there. He is a clone in some aspects.
Yep.
You know, he's number 5 because it's just kind of it's there. I don't know how else to like his significance for the Superman lore is up there. It's very high.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's like it's almost comedic relief.
Yeah.
It's odd.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with that. That's my number 5.
Kind of a what do you do with him?
Yeah.
Yeah. My number 5 is Bentley 23. Who the frick is Bentley 23? So he is a clone of the Wizard, Bentley Whitman, in the Marvel Comics universe. He is called the Wizard. Now, here's what's cool about Bentley 23. All right. He is rescued by the Fantastic Four because the Wizard is a classic Fantastic Four villain. Bentley is a clone of his dad, Bentley Whitman, and brought into the Fantastic Four fold with the hope of the Fantastic Four of, hey, we're going to put this kid in a healthy environment. We're going to teach him. We're going to train him. And we're going to hope that eventually it's going to have a really positive impact. And for issue after issue, okay, the Storm family is like teaching these kids, and they call them the Future Foundation. There's about a dozen, is that right? Give or take. A dozen U's, including the Richards, 2 youngest kids. And Bentley is one of them. And Bentley is constantly the kid that when all the other kids are going, hey, we're going to do this really cool, like noble thing. Bentley's like, we should do the opposite and kill a bunch of people. So they're always looking at him sideways like, dude, you don't do that. Don't do that. So it's literally the little villain in their midst. And for multiple issues, that's what takes place. He slowly starts to turn a little bit more positive until finally, way towards the end of Jonathan Hickman's run, he gets confronted by or introduced to his dad, the original, and the original's like, you're bad. There's nothing good about you. Put on my wizard helmet and take the mantle. And little Bentley kicks him right in the nards. And essentially says, screw you, Pops. Pieces out and takes up the mantle for good. So it's kind of a fun little run. Bentley 23. My number 4, also Bizarro. Totally agree with you. It's just kind of why is this even here? But here's the Bizarro that I'm going to call attention to in particular, the new 52 version of Bizarro, where Bizarro is produced by Lex Luthor as a clone of Superman. But what's really fun about this version of Bizarro is that the entire Justice League gets essentially sent off universe by the, oh my gosh, what do they call themselves? Like not the Justice Society of America. Oh, I'm drawing a huge blank. But essentially the evil versions of the Justice League show up, right? And so Lex Luthor is left on Earth going, okay, I could use the Justice League around now, and they're not here, and he's got his Superman clone in the incubator, and he's going, he still needs a couple years, or we're just going to have to break him out. And so he busts open the glass, pulls out the Superman clone, and he's not fully developed, so he's Bizarro, Superman. But he actually has some nice moments where he saves Lex Luthor's bacon and essentially becomes Lex Luthor's son. Before Ultraman kills him, which is a little sad. So, short run for Bizarro in the New 52, but there it is, Bizarro, my number 4.
Fair enough. My number 4, I'm giving to Connor Kent, Con-El. My main experience with Connor is from Young Justice.
Yep.
Very appealing character. They bust him out of the tanks immediately. And see, here's the weird thing for Connor. He has 2 dads, no mom. It is Lex and Kal-El.
Ew.
It's an odd mix. So he's half human, half Kryptonian.
Yep.
I don't know why Lex did that, but I digress. So to see him like go from pretty much this newborn, essentially, in a Superman body, to becoming like this hero. Very appealing story. So
no kidding.
Yeah, I like Connor.
That's a great number 4. Old Connor Kent.
Number 3.
It's a good sounding name too, Connor Kent. It's like, that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's great. My number 3 is Kane Parker, a.k.a. the second Scarlet Spider, a.k.a. the Spider-Man who's not afraid to kill people. And I love that dynamic for Spider-Man because here's the deal. Out of the Clone Saga, you got Ben Reilly and then you got Kane. And the first time you see Kane, he gets this like weird, like, he's disfigured a little bit in the face. Like he was not a well-done clone.
Right.
And like, I don't think he had any of the memories that like Ben Reilly got, because Ben Reilly got all of Peter's memories. Right. I don't think Kane got jack crap for that part. And so just to see a Spider-Man that never had an Uncle Ben and just to see what he turns out to be, it's fantastic. So yeah. Kane Parker is my number 3.
That's great. We're going to have a lot of overlap here, which is great. My number 3 is also Connor Kent. Connor Kent has a terrific role in some of the more classic DC comics. He actually dies fighting the Anti-Monitor, which is a super sad event. Well, the Anti-Monitor and Superboy Prime, who is just a phenomenal villain. So he's actually fighting against another version of Superboy, which is super tight. But again, just that idea of, I think something that's so weird or maybe relatable. Yeah, we'll call it relatable about clones, right? Is they didn't choose to be made. And that's true for all of us. Like, none of us had anything to do with, all right, I'd like to exist, and here's what I'd like to be like. So the idea of cloning is just kind of taking it to that extreme, right? Of, hey, we're actually making you a copy of this particular person. And so what I enjoyed so much in that comics run with Connor Kent is he's clearly, like, struggling with, I don't want to be Clark Kent, right? Like, I don't want to be compared to him. I don't want to be him. I want to be, not that he doesn't want to be good or do good for the world, but he just wants to be able to be his own, have his own identity, if you will. And so I really found that compelling. I thought this is a good character. This is one worth spending some time with. So my number 2 is X-23, aka Laura, the clone of Wolverine. Now, there are multiple clones of Wolverine, but I'm just giving her the style points. Like the 2 claws, she uses them extraordinarily well. And how about the claw in the foot? Like, that's unexpected. And at first I thought, that's kind of dumb. Why would you have a claw in the foot? Well, it's because it's phenomenal, because it's incredibly effective, and nobody's going to see it coming. It's so good. I would love to see a version of X-23 in just all the movies moving forward. I don't know if that's too much to ask. But
I don't think so.
No, let's see it.
After seeing this, and like I think it's so good for the Wolverine character to have a daughter, essentially, that he actually has a good relationship with. Because most of his kids, he has terrible relationships with. So to have this one and have a good relationship with, I think that's incredible for the character.
Do it. Just gotta do it.
My number 2 is also X-23, Laura, who is, I think, Wolverine now. as well as
might as well be
as her dad. I think they're both Wolverine.
Yep.
Because why not?
Yep.
And the Wolverine suit looks good on her too.
Sure.
Fits really well.
Sure.
But you get a clone of Wolverine and you're like, yeah, let's do it. But yeah, the way, like, the two claws, still badass.
Mhm.
I honestly liked the Logan explanation in that movie when Charles is like, it's kind of crazy because it's like the lions. And they're like, in a sense, it's like, it doesn't work. But at the same time, it's like, actually, that kind of is cool. Right. So my only thing is, I was trying to figure out where the blade comes from. Yep. I think it comes on top of the foot. Yeah. Because part of me was like, does it come right between the big toe and the second toe? Because it's got to come right on the top of the foot. Right. It's a weird spot.
Correct.
So.
Correct.
Yeah. X-23. Yeah. Wolverine.
Super
Laura
dope.
Kinney. My number 2.
Love it. Your number 1, sir.
Oh, yeah. My number 1.
Yeah.
It's Ben Reilly. It's 100% Ben Reilly. How can you not like the Scarlet Spider costume? It's fantastic. Now.
It's a great look.
Now, has my homie been through it a couple of times, okay?
A little bit.
Look, he's a Peter Parker clone. His life was never going to be easy, okay? But for some reason, his got even worse. Because now he's been on a bad guy run, and then he comes back as the Scarlet Spider again to go for that run again.
Right.
And then again goes down this villain hole where he goes by Chasm now. And look at that look. It is horrifying. It is a horrifying look. He's trying to get his memories back. His memories are gone. It's terrible. Okay. So you look at all that stuff. It's a bummer. Ben Reilly goes through it, man.
Oh boy.
So
poor rascal.
Major bummer train. But what I am looking forward to, because Andy Samberg's Ben Reilly and Across the Spider-Verse is fantastic. Not realistic at all to the character, but it works so well.
Oh my god.
So I'm so excited for the final installment of those movies just to see Andy Spider-Man again. So
that was so entertaining.
Oh,
he was perfectly cast for that version.
It worked so well.
Bless you, Andy. All right. My number 1 is Heretic. This is a DC Comics pull. So he's a clone of Damian Wayne. I brought him up before on this podcast. Creepiest freaking clone ever. Okay? Because he has the body of an absolute giant, like a 7-foot tall behemoth of a person. And yet he has the head of Damian Wayne. No, thank you. So the look is super terrible, super terrifying, but he's a freaking unit, like just a walking tank that Talia al Ghul produced to take down Batman. And he's actually pretty capable of doing that. So that's my number 1, Heretic. Also, the name is fantastic. Heretic, that's great.
That's pretty good.
Talia kills him, by the way. So
yeah, she does.
His run is short, not very sweet. He kills Damian Wayne. Batman kicks his butt, and then Talia's so disgusted with him, she just beheads him. And it's wild stuff. Wild stuff. But there you go. That's my number one Heretic. So, Miles, anything else for the good people?
No, I think we got to wrap it up. This was a good beefy one.
Wow, you're welcome, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, in a couple of weeks, it's time to start making predictions. Let's go.
I've been so excited for this movie. It's fantastic.
We're so close.
Yes.
We've been so patient. Well, I haven't actually been patient, but I have had to wait anyway. So let's just freaking do it.
So like, comment, subscribe, do whatever. I really don't care. On that note, Godspeed.
Peace.